When the hell do you do deep work when you're checking your email 11 times an hour? Like, there's no way you can be putting your brain into it.
Welcome to the Leadership Podcast. I'm Chris Johnson. I'm the CEO of Leadership. I've got Matt Sim here with us, the CEO of Simplicity Designs. The topic for today's episode is how do we maximize our time as leaders? Matt, I've heard you talk before about this, and you usually open with who in the audience has too much time? And everybody chuckles and they roll their eyes as if they have absolutely no control over how busy they are or where they spend their time. But that's not the truth. And that's what I want to unpack today. I want you to kind of walk us through some ways we can be better at managing our time. And I'll tee this up for you because I know you like to say this. We're all really busy. Yeah. So what's busy?
Yeah. Thanks for teeing it up like that. I read an article in 2009. It said busy is the new stupid. And I think it's important to reframe busy. We got to stop the glorification of busy.
Yeah.
I mean, busy means you have not taken the time to sort and sequence what really matters and then booked it appropriately. And any of the high performers that I know have time for themselves so they can lead themselves first. They have time to think strategically. They have connected their commitments daily to the outputs they need in their area of the business for the business. And they aren't busy. They get their stuff done. And so, we've done a lot of improvements over the years, something like 2,400 projects over the last 11 years. And I've never been able to bring another hour into the day. So we got the same 24 hours. How do we use those in a more effective way, right? And whenever I work with leaders, the first thing I ask them to do is clearly articulate, what are you responsible for in the business? What's the engine or the set of processes that you have that allow you to achieve those outcomes in the business? And then where are you spending your minutes to enable it? Can you put that math together? And if you can't put that math together, stop running like an idiot and let's reset. Well,
we all probably grew up in a world where working hard and being busy was a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so we've all of a sudden tripped over this reality that being busy as a leader when you have certain responsibilities isn't necessarily the best way to use your time. I mean, we've talked a lot about in our work together over the years that, what you, at a certain level in an organization, what you've done to create success is not the same thing that's going to create success when you move to the next level in the organization, right?
Yeah.
So when we narrow in specifically on leaders, it's not about delivering value in the organization anymore. No. And that's hard to hear for people that like doing the work.
You get the opportunity to become a leader because of how hard you worked, because of how smart you were at getting stuff done, because of how quick you were able to move your solution to micro problems into action that created value. Great. Congratulations, you've become a leader now. The game's totally different at that point because now it's not about how much can you do, it's about how much can you enable.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And you got to understand how you enable value. How do you do that? How do you show up in the right way? How do you bridge the gap between intent and impact? When you're responsible for the doing, when you're responsible for executing the work, there's no replacing working hard. There's none.
Yeah.
I mean, you can work a little bit smarter, but you gotta put the effort in. You gotta put the hours in. When you're mastering a skill, you gotta, what's skill acquisition? It's spaced repetition at the edge of your ability. That's what peak performance is. Anders Ericsson writes a great book on peak. He talks about what is peak performance. Well, you can improve any skill that you want by doing it again and again on the edge of your ability. You can amplify that with a coach who's observing, etc. Okay. You can take that same premise and you can now take it to your responsibilities as a leader. But they're different responsibilities than doing the work. And this is what happens so often with first-time entrepreneurs. They think they can outwork the next set of problems.
Yeah.
You can't.
Let's dive into the responsibilities. I'd love to hear from your perspective as a leader of a small business, what you should be focused on. Where should you be spending your time?
For me, that's changed. That's changed over the course of us growing the business. When we were a small 7-person organization, it's totally different than running a portfolio of 5 main operating companies, 9 companies we have equity in, and being at different levels in those organizations, right? So the world's evolved now, right? So running 8 figures of business, doing so with multiple partners in multiple businesses, I have to be extremely intentional about how I set my calendar up, because in some cases, I'm still doing the work. When you think about us delivering leadership, I'm showing up delivering the day in leadership sometimes. When you think about simplicity and you think about the major transformations, I'm showing up delivering in. So in some ways, I'm still doing what I was doing 10 years ago. But in other ways, with some of the other organizations that we have partnerships with, that we have minority positions in, it's totally different. I'm there to facilitate strategy. I'm there to enable the improvement rate, which means I'm there to help the leaders lead in their area for the people that are in their charge to do the work. And too often what you find is that people are really good at doing the job. So then when they get promoted, they end up working down a level and just doing the job they used to do with a different title and more money. Yeah. And it's not what the organization requires, right? So, we could drone on here for a while, but the most important thing as a leader is to set up your calendar with intention and then take a look at it and go, if I achieve that, will it give me the results I want? And what you'll find is all too often you're setting yourself up for doing too much of the work instead of creating the environment for others to step up and do the work.
I think that's the point. I think that's the real point there, right? You think about the average business owner that's listening, run a physio clinic, accounting firm, vet clinic. What are those core responsibilities? Because if you can structure it so that you're not doing the work every day, the time spent is like on vision and culture and things like that, right? Like that's the stuff that no one really tells you when you get into business. You're doing the work, you're growing your team, and all of a sudden, somewheres along the way, your job needs to change. But nobody tells you that, right? So can we go there a little bit, just in terms of in a perfect world, and nothing's perfect, but how would you coach a average small business owner in terms of where they should be prioritizing? What are they responsible for leading the organization, other than those odd occasions like you talk about where they actually have to play down for a good reason? But that shouldn't be the day job. Playing down shouldn't be the day job.
This is it's a good question and a very hard question to give a single answer to.
Fair.
Because as a CEO, it depends what type of CEO you are. Are you more of a technical CEO where your partnerships are sales bound, or are you more of a sales CEO where your partnership's technical? Mm-hmm. So it really depends on what kind of team you've put around you. But regardless of what team you put around you, you are ultimately responsible for creating the game, creating the container. So what are we building? The smaller the business you are, the more you need to be clear about what you're trying to do so that other people can join you on that journey. So first of all, you're responsible for setting where we're headed. Then you're responsible for clarifying what are the metrics of success on this journey. So that means you got to state some objectives that we're going after, and how are we going to see those objectives? So we start to give clarity on what winning is.
Yeah. How to keep score.
Exactly. How to keep score. And look, metrics are not the end all and be all.
Yep.
And one of the worst used expressions in business is, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. Well, it is a terrible sentence, because it's actually taken from a work by Edward Deming that actually says the opposite of that. And I can't remember the exact quote, but literally they took the middle of the sentence out, and now they keep quoting the middle of the sentence to say what they want it to say. Yeah. Instead of what he said basically, it is wrong to suppose if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, a costly myth. Yeah. He's literally saying the opposite
of what we've been
exactly. It's crazy, right? Now, don't get me wrong. The metrics are important because now you're setting the container up, right? So you're setting up what we're building, the big vision, where you're chasing, what you're going after. You're setting up the metrics that are going to guide the journey. Then you're setting up who's going to be responsible for what. Okay. And in that, you'll start to define, what does a good week look like? But the thing that I challenge all senior leaders with is, can you articulate for me a month in the life. And if you can step back and go, a month in the life, where would I be spending my time? Right? And you can lay that out on a calendar. And you start to look at it. And look, I'm not here to tell you whether you should work 30 hours, 20 hours, 80 hours. That's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to help you get clarity over where you're headed, get clarity over what you're looking at, get clarity over who's responsible for what, and then get intentional about how you're going to spend those hours. Whether, I was talking with one entrepreneur last night. She absolutely loves this stage of her life. Solopreneur in the financial world, working 20 hours a week, making twice as much as she was making when she was working for someone else.
Yep.
And she wants to work 20 hours a week because she has 2 young kids, and she wants to be there for moments with her young kids. And she wants to be there in the summer. She takes 8 weeks off in the summer with the exception of small check-in stuff. Wonderful. You see how she set up the game of what's success, and then she set up her small solopreneur business to go after that. For other people, that's going to be different. But what I want you to be able to articulate is, what is the ideal month in a life? And then how close are you to it? Because I get a lot of people who can articulate a month in the life, and then they're nowhere near living that. The organization that they've created is just full of fire drills that mean they are almost never spending the time the way they thought they would spend it.
It's a great example, another great example of how we have to zoom out.
Yeah.
You have to actually envision what you want it to be and then work towards it, because otherwise you're just grinding. You're just going at it every day. And that's what we see so many small businesses, leaders dealing with, right?
And look, I want you to put the effort in. I want you to put the cycles in, but I want them to give you the result that you want, not just tread water.
Yeah.
When you really get down to this and you go, what is time management? Hey, look, there's no such thing as time management. There's energy management. We all live on some form of circadian rhythm. Find out whether you're a night owl or you're an early bird, whatever it happens to be. Understand that we all live in different cycles of energy. And how do you set your work up and your work sprints up so that you are putting that intentional time and you've got it booked off in the calendar for when you can really get at the stuff you need to get at. Too often, you will get at the stuff that you want to do or that you like to do. And as a team, as a senior leader, you have to constantly set the circumstance by which you get at the stuff you need to do, not the stuff you like to do or want to do or feel valued doing.
You often talk about how much time an individual spends in a given day responding in near time to email. And then you have some advice on how to fix that. But I think so many people use email like text or like 911, I got to respond. So give us some of those numbers, those stats in terms of the reality, unfortunate reality of how much time it actually should take you to respond to email.
Hey, look, we're all tethered to some form of device in this modern world, and it's ridiculous. The average North American worker, the average North American white collar worker checks their email 11 times an hour. 88 times a day.
Wow.
It's pure insanity, right? And so if you want to get over the tyranny of email, which that's what it is, when the hell do you do deep work when you're checking your email 11 times an hour? Like, there's no way you can be putting your brain into it. And if you're that distracted, I don't like your odds of looking back over the next 6 months and going, did I acquire any skills? Did I do any deep work? Did I move the needle?
Yeah.
I don't like your odds. So look, if you're checking your email that often, people go, well, it's because I get all these emails. Yeah. Okay. So they did another study and goes, how much total time does it take to respond to all the emails you get in a day? The number's shockingly low, 37 minutes.
Wow. But we check 88 times a day.
Right. Yeah. So it's one of these things that takes up an enormous amount of attentional time, but it doesn't actually take up much focus time. And so one of the things we do in our organizations, and you've heard me say it, and you've seen us now live it as we started to work together. Look, if I send you a text, I hope you respond pretty quickly. But that's my method of going, like, I need something. And I'm not talking within like 5 minutes. I'm talking your time within it. If I really need you, puff, right? Pick up the phone, right? That's what, but
exactly.
Send a text. That's relatively urgent, but it's still on your time.
Yeah.
Email, look, within the next 24 hours, get at it.
Yeah.
Okay. So now at least give me a response. Where are we? But that's totally on your time. And we set this up. No notifications on your phone, no notifications on your, like all this shit that is distracting you nonstop. It is taking you away from building and enabling the organization that you want. And my favorite response to this is a lot of people go, well, I got to respond to the customer right away. And look, we're evangelists for an outside-in organization, customer first. Absolutely. But with all due respect, nobody in the world needs to hear from you faster than 2 hours. Nobody. So if you put it in that perspective, if you check your email 3 times a day for 30 minutes and you block it in, you will take care of all of what you need to on a day-to-day basis. And I know we've spent a lot of time here on this email thing, but I really believe that it's probably the single most dangerous impediment to building the business you want to build.
I totally agree. And I think we feel good about responding quickly because we're allowing the person we're responding to get back on what they're working on. But then all of a sudden we've done it 88 times a day. Maybe we responded to a dozen email or something. So maybe we've saved somebody a few minutes, but we've lost 8 hours of focused work.
Look, I think your comment may be a bit altruistic too. People respond to email because they feel important about having gotten one. That's at the base. Like, yes, I want to get out to my people and all that stuff. And I may have said that. And that's actually a usual excuse. But look, when somebody needs something from us, it satisfies a deep need within a person that they are needed. And that is dangerous, really dangerous. So, I mean, look, I know we've spent a lot of time here on email management, but if you're going to build the business of your dreams, you're going to have to get really good at creating space for deep work so that you can get what you need done. And if you're going to do that, the first thing you got to be able to do is figure out when you do that work the best, and then you got to eliminate the distractions. And the number one distraction is this device that we're all tethered to.
When do you do the work the best? Can you unpack that? It's in the morning when you're refreshed.
Yeah, some people, and it depends what kind of work. Like deep analytical work is usually done better with a fresh brain. Yep. Ironically, creative work is done better with a tired brain.
Interesting.
Because you with a tired brain, you aren't as susceptible to self-correcting and editing your thoughts. So you can get more of them out. So, this is why you see a lot of writers that write deep into the night, because they don't stop themselves and constantly edit. Right. So you got to find the rhythm that works for you and the business. And look, this is easy to say and hard to do, because the rhythm that actually would work best for me is not one that currently works best for my commitment. So I've had to retrain my own circadian rhythm to be able to contend with 6 a.m. wake ups. I'm not one of these Tim Cook 4:30 in the morning people. Like, I think that's a heinous time to be up unless you're still up, right? Like, I have no desire, none, to get up early in the morning. And yet with young kids and a number of businesses and the cycle we're in, I've had to retrain my own circadian rhythm so that I can get up at that time and be productive and make before I manage, get some of my own time in, etc.
It's interesting. And I think that, you talked before about Daniel Pink and his writings on that in terms of the when, right? Yeah. And just understanding that a little more.
The thing I love about Dan Pink is he takes all of the great literature that's totally unreadable in the science community and turns it into something that you can actually consume. So that's what, that's the power of Dan Pink.
So in summary, how would you close us out on this topic? Because there's a lot of distractions. Talked a lot about email, talked a lot about notifications on the phone, talked a lot about the glorification of busy and feeling good about getting a whole bunch of things done that may not be important. What's the departing advice in terms of how do I make a change this week to be better?
Get intentional about your business. Get intentional about the role you need to play in the business. Get intentional about articulating how you need to show up to enable that. And then get really honest about your use of time. And that reflection loop consistently on, I set out to do it like this. This is how much of what I said I was going to get done, I got done. This is the other things I did. Now let's get into that daily reflection loop on, are you spending your minutes in the way that's unlocking the most value? Because when you own a business, no one is going to challenge you on how you're spending the time. You got to create that rhythm to challenge yourself. Am I getting distracted by stuff? Am I spending time on stuff I know how to do or I like to do, not the stuff I need to do? Right? The mirror is the one that's got to play the role, because most of your leadership team probably isn't going to just yet.
Awesome. Thank you for that. If you want to learn more about leadership, visit us at leadership.com or look us up on LinkedIn. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode and want to help us grow, please share it with your friends and colleagues. This would mean the world to us.